Well, g'day and welcome to episode 6 of the Two Jacks. I'm the other Jack, by the way, Jack the Insider, but the real Jack here is Hong Kong Jack. G'day, Jack. How are you today?
Excellent. How are you?
Oh, very well, thanks, mate. Tell me what's going on in Hong Kong at the moment, COVID-wise?
Well, we've got some cases continuing to rise, and people generally are now looking at the little map that they put up on the dashboard every morning to see whether there's any cases in your vicinity or anywhere you go. And everyone's dreading being caught in a QR code situation where they're made to go off and be tested, or worse, sent across to quarantine. But the good news is, I suppose, is that our vaccination rates are now going up, and I went and got a booster yesterday, and the line was long, gratifyingly long to get in there, and lots of old people, and I think we're over 30% now with our over 80s, which is and over 60% with our 70 to 80s. So things are looking up on that. It's caused a bit of kerfuffle with the government. Carrie Lam, our leader here, has decided not to go to the Olympic opening ceremony today. She's staying in Hong Kong.
Probably be the safest place she could go, though, really, the Beijing bubble.
In the bubble, yeah, she could be in the bubble. But she's been here busy giving the push to the Home Secretary, Casper Louis, who's a politician from the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment of Hong Kong.
What a glorious name that is.
It is a glorious name. And unsurprisingly, this is the pro-Beijing party with a name like that.
Right.
He's been... She was in the midst of giving him the push, but he's jumped in first and resigned. Right. And it's all because he went to a party for one of his political comrades from the same from the Democratic Alliance, and he was one of the 30 odd government officials who were sent off to quarantine. And he's decided the political life is no longer for him, and he's tapped the mat. No, meantime, Boris hasn't resigned.
Yeah, well, it does resonate. Does resonate very starkly with conditions in the UK with illegal parties around number 10. Yeah, Boris is hanging on. The Sue Gray report, which was, Cressida Dick from the Met said, basically, no worries, just drop the whole thing and around the front of number 10, and then she backpedaled on that. So the Sue Gray report. It's come out. I think we're dealing with essentially an executive summary and not very much else. But it has actually said that there were serious failures in management around number 10.
Yes, yeah. I've had a bit of a glance at it. It doesn't tell us a hell of a lot that we didn't already know. That they'd made a bit of a shambles of the thing.
Yeah. And look, I think we said last week that Boris had started the week last with a use-by date of probably about 24 hours, and I think by the end of it, I figured he got to about 72 hours before he could start having a long look at the abyss. But it seems like he's made a little bit of space and time for himself, a little bit more. I'd say now his use-by date's probably 2.5 weeks.
It could be. I noticed this morning there were more resignations, but they were mainly staff, and to be honest, he needs to get rid of them anyway.
Well, that was always going to happen, wasn't it? I mean, basically, these were problems created essentially by staff. Yeah,
so they had to go.
The Boris overseas, and if Boris isn't going to resign,
they have to go. Yeah.
Or if he does, they're going to go anyway.
Well, that's right. Yeah. So their careers were done and dusted. So the fact that 4 of them resigned doesn't really take you anywhere. In terms of timing, if he gets through the next couple of weeks and survives without a no confidence motion, the next big hurdle for him to jump is the May local elections. These are generally treated in the UK a bit like midterms in the US, as a bit of a referendum on how the government's going. So the Tories are going to either decide they don't want to go into those May elections with him as leader, or they're going to go into them with him as leader and see how it goes and give him the push if it doesn't go well.
That's the 54 letters that are required.
54 letters.
That would be required to bring about a spill. 54 letters of no confidence. And that's, I think, 15% of the Tory parliamentary party.
It is, and no one really knows whether they've already got the 54 or not. And the party grandees, as they're called in the Tory party, are meeting and looking at the tea leaves and working out what to do. And every pundit going around is having a crack at what needs to happen, which is always what you would expect.
Yeah, a cacophony of noise around it.
The best argument I read yesterday was from I can't think who made it, but it was that perhaps it's time for Boris to go because he's done what we needed him to do, and the things we needed him to do, this Tory said, was to get Brexit done and to see off the poison of Jeremy Corbyn, and he's done those two things. And there seems to be a bit of an absence of, well, what's he going to do next, and a worry about what he's going to do next.
Yeah, that's the Conservative view, isn't it? But that basically he needs to straighten up and fly right.
Come back to the centre a little bit. Lord Frost, who was his Brexit negotiator, said he needs to get rid of all the neo-socialists, the green fanatics, and the pro-woke crowd out of his office and start again.
Look, that's almost sort of white flag stuff for me, because really Boris, and let's be honest about Boris. Boris never lost an election, right?
No. In fact, he's very good at winning them.
So you can actually turn around to Frost and others and say, look, you blokes have been involved in a few failures along the way. I'm not sure what you're trying to tell him that he doesn't already know. I mean, that sort of stuff is white flag stuff. That we will go back to our base and we will work our base, and hopefully our base will be good enough in 2024. Enough to get us over the line in 2024. That would mean a lot of loss of a lot of seats, including these sort of red wall Tories that exist across the Midlands and in northern Wales.
I'm not sure the Tory base is big enough to form a government with.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. So Boris is one of these fellows who can actually engage that outside the base. He does. And he certainly was very good at it in 2019.
Don't forget, he was twice elected Lord Mayor of London, which is just not a job for Conservatives.
Yeah, exactly right. So, look, we'll see how he gets on. I noticed there have been some sort of fairly breathless reports about parties, though, Jack. Now, we'd all love a party. No, not necessarily political ones. Is there a culture of drinking at number 10 that's perhaps worse than, I don't know, other parts of the world, perhaps even Australia?
Well, in Australia, I think it was architectural. The culture of drinking was much more prevalent when they were still down in Old Parliament House, because it had the fabulous non-members bar. And they used to hold question time in the morning, so that nice and early.
11 o'clock, wasn't it, question time?
Yeah, so there was time to blow the froth off a couple after question times before you settle down to a decent lunch.
Have a couple of Lachlan Macquaries, a couple of early settlers, and then off to question time.
And of course, when they moved to New Parliament House, all of that went out the window. So, and it wasn't such a convivial place, So you need roller skates to get around New Parliament House, as you know.
It's a very large, forbidding sort of place, but they do have a meditation room there, Jack. Have you?
I have seen the meditation room, and I've heard various explanations as to the uses it's been put to. None of them involve having a drink, not
a lot of drinking. Well, there might have been some drinking as a bit of foreplay before.
And foreplay is the appropriate word. The only activity I've ever heard of going on in the meditation room is
a bit of horizontal folk dancing.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, we might need to get the boys from the lab up there to do a bit of testing and see what kind of human spillage there is there.
With the ultraviolet lights.
On a more serious note, Jack, the Ukraine. We've been watching the two sides basically saber rattling at one another for the last month or so. Putin doesn't look like he's going to stand his troops down anytime soon, and the West, largely driven by the United States, is not giving, and the UK, to be fair, is not giving him much slack at all. It does look like a very serious situation.